Welcome to Let's Think About It with Advocates Protecting Children. I'm Maria Keffler.
I'm Erin Brewer.
And I'm May Lyle.
What are we talking about today, Erin?
Well, today we're going to talk about a headline that I found, and it sort of exemplifies all of the problem that we have with the media right now. And the headline says, White House condemns South Dakota over anti-trans sports law. And that is something we can deconstruct on so many different levels. Just incredibly offensive, first of all, to me, that the White House is basically saying that they're going to support men over women. Really what this headline should say is White House celebrates legislation to protect women. But because of the current ideology, it instead casts this as a transphobic sports law.
Well, we see this all the time, don't we? The transgender rights people have set everything up as these false dichotomies. Either we get everything we want, or you're hateful, bigoted, transphobic, terrible. And that's what we see here. The South Dakota law that was passed keeps biological men out of women's sports. That's appropriate. That's right. That's based on reality. Research surveys are starting to show that the large majority of people recognize that men should not participate in women's sports. Men and women's bodies are very different. And so the fact that the White House is first capitulating to this false dichotomy, oh, it's anti-trans, hateful. No, it's not. It's pro-women. It's pro-reality. It's pro-biology. It's pro-science. It's pro-fact. It's a factual thing that men and women's bodies are different. And so that is the first thing that strikes me as being wrong with this.
And what we're seeing repeatedly is that no matter what a female says or does, it's going to be struck down. And the female swimmers at Penn State are being told you can't speak out, or this, you're not going to get a job offer, you're not going to have the opportunities. And so whatever they say or do does not matter. And it's always spun in a negative way to fit the agenda of the trans ideology. It's always negative. It's never, this is to protect women or females.
Right. And with the legislative sessions in progress in many states, we're going to see headline after headline after headline cast this way. Transphobes are trying to prevent children from using the bathroom. Transphobes are trying to stop children from participating in sports. Transphobes are trying to protect or deny children medical care. And this is the narrative that we hear over and over and over again, that anybody who doesn't embrace this ideology is transphobic, rather than the truth, which is we're fighting for the rights of children and women. We're fighting to protect children. We're being cast as hateful and bigoted when in fact we're trying really hard to maintain reality and protect these children. And another headline that came out this week says proposed insurance rule ignite debate over transgender healthcare. Again, the media is completely misrepresenting what is happening. What's happening here is that the White House is trying to force insurance companies to have to pay to medically transition anybody with gender dysphoria, even though these are experimental interventions that have been shown to be ineffective and increase self-harm and suicide. And this might actually be an interesting tipping point, because if insurance are coerced into having to cover this, they might start pushing back, because this can be really expensive. And it's also going to open up opportunities for lawsuits from, say, a woman like me who identifies as a woman who wants to have the same cosmetic interventions as a man who claims to identify as a woman.
That's a really good point that you brought up, Erin, because when a woman wants to have, for medical reasons, for having back issues, wants to have a breast reduction, insurance will not pay for it.
Well, and we're seeing too.
Yeah.
We're seeing too that detransitioners, people who went through some of these interventions and then regret it, their reversal procedures are not being covered.
Right.
Why? If we're going to support gender identity, in that I love your kitty. Your kitty wants to be part of this.
She's gonna bomb you though. She needs to bomb you with her front side.
She is a gender critical cat, and we're glad she's here.
She's a TERF, a gender critical feline.
She's got something to say about insurance
sure
companies
does.
not covering detransitioners.
Exactly.
We're gonna do surgeries for a transgender identity, then we need to do surgeries away from a transgender identity too. It's the same thing. It's the opposite side of the coin.
Especially when talking to these detransitioners, the amount of distress that they have over the changes that were induced is the same, if not more, as the distress that they had with the gender dysphoria that encouraged pushed them to engage in these medical interventions in the first place. So if they're gauging it based on dysphoria, discomfort, depression, angst, then they should cover. I have an issue with my eyelids where they kind of droop, and it makes it hard to read sometimes because they're heavy on my eyes. It pushes down my eyelids, but it's considered cosmetic surgery until it gets to a certain point, and then it's considered medical. But if it caused me a lot of angst, it should be covered. Why is it that certain angst, certain dysphoria, certain feelings are prioritized over others? And again, this is maybe where there'll be a tipping point, because insurance companies are going to start getting lawsuits saying they're discriminating against women because they're allowing men who claim to be women to get breast augmentation operations, but flat-chested women who identify as women are not given the same are not having the same procedures covered. So that's a clear example of discrimination based on sex.